criteria for the selection of a problem. We have already discussed that a problem is the starting point of our research in social sciences. And we also discussed that how we are going to assert a problem and identify a problem, right? But here is a point. We are not supposed to explore each and every problem, right? So how would we select a problem? What is the criteria through which we would select our research problem? So in this session, we are going to discuss the criteria for the selection of a research problem, because we need to know that what is the problem, what kind of problem we are supposed to explore in our research, right? We know that the starting point of social sciences research is based on a research problem, right? Because social sciences research is always oriented towards a problem, right? So we must explore something which is novel in its nature, right? Novel in the sense that we may not be going for unnecessary duplications, right? Something which has already been explained, something which has already been, discussed by other, that has been researched by other. We need not to go for that. We would definitely, good researchers, if we want to go for something which is novel, right? Which is significant and which is also important, right? So these are the points which would make our study novel. So novelty is important. We must be selecting a problem which is based on novelty, right? This is not something which has been explored already, right? Then we must select a problem which is significant, which is important, and that problem solution is important to so many people, right? So that is a significant problem and its solution is very important. So we need to select a problem for our research study which is significant, which is important in its nature, and other stakeholders are also interested in its solution, right? So we would select a problem which is the focus of intellectual interest, right? The intellectual curiosity, is there, and in that problem there is an interest for intellectual curiosity, right? Because we would definitely be using scientific way to solve that problem, and there is intellectual insight available that would be intellectually explored. So this intellectual curiosity is that is the part of the problem, right? That would attract intellectual curiosity, right? And we must select a problem which is within our approach. We would not only define that problem, but we would, on the basis of our qualifications, on the basis of our trainings and our qualification, we have the ability to explore that problem, right? We are either trained or we may be trained in order to select that problem and to solve that problem, right? That is not something which is out of our domain. We may not be trained for the solution of that problem, or we do not have a personal qualification to pick up that problem and solve it, right? So that is an important point, and we must know that what problem are we going to select, okay? Another point is that the problem which we are selecting, we know that it is within our availability, right? We need the data. The data is within our approach. We can select data, we can collect data in order to address that problem. So nothing is out of our access, and we could freely explore it, and we would be able to explore it, right? So there are no hindrances towards data related to that problem, right? So that is an important point. And we must also make it possible that the problem which is selected is based on special equipment exploration, right? We have the required special equipment, right? We are trained for that special equipment, and the working conditions are, compatible with the problem, right? So there is something which we are selecting as a problem, and we have the professional ability, and we have the instrumental scientific ability to explore that problem, and the working conditions, the overall working conditions are available to explore that problem, right? So that is another requirement. And the sample required, though it's the part of the data, the sample required is within approach, right? The approachability of the sample for studying that problem, that is within our control. We have access to that approaches. We have approaches to that sample, right? And then another point which could be explored before the selection of our research problem, is that if we could also make it sure that there is the required cooperation level available. We would be cooperated by our samples, by our working conditions, by our trainings, and by our scientific instruments. So that cooperation is available and that sponsorship is available, right? Sponsorship is another term which must be known to researchers like you, that sponsorships may also be in terms of money. There are funding agencies like Higher Education Commission or maybe international agencies which would fund particular researchers, because they are interested in exploring those particular problems. And particularly in developed societies, in developed countries, research projects are funded by multinational companies, right? So that is also one possibility. But at your academic level or at your master degree level, we must be able to make it sure that the required cooperation level is available. It is not only available from our teachers and supervisors, but that cooperation level is also available from our samples and from our population, right? So that should also be made sure. And then another point of view which must be explored is regarding the cost and return, right? So we must have the cost which is required for exploring that problem, right? And that, the cost which is spent may also be returned in terms of the valuable knowledge, right? The knowledge which is added at the end of the activity is worthy exploring, right? That is worthy exploration, okay? So that may also be made sure. And the last point is that we must also think about the time factor, right? Are we selecting a problem which could be described, which could be explored within appropriate time? And appropriate time is like, for example, if it's an MA level thesis, it should be, generally it should be completed within 1 semester. Or if it is an MPhil or MS level research, it should be completed within 1 year, right? And if it is like a PhD level research, then it must be completed within 3-4 years, right? 3 years is, the major rule, but it should be completed within the time frame appropriate to the level of the research, right? So these are some of the points, some of the criteria which must be known to researchers before the selection of their research problems.